I'll just give my thoughts. This was a must-win series for the Milwaukee Bucks and Budenholzer. And I don't think Budenholzer's out of the woods yet, in my opinion, especially looking at this series. The Atlanta Hawks are down by 2 as we're recording this. So especially if the Atlanta Hawks, I mean, let's face it, there's a perception of them being a Cinderella team. So if they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and the Bucks lose to them, I mean, I think Budenholzer still gets fired. I really do, even though they made the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, it's a situation in which the Bucks, we've been waiting for years with Giannis as them being a finals team and a championship contender team. It's built, if the Hawks were to miraculously win, for the Bucks to win the series. And I think it's disrespectful to Atlanta just to predict like a sweep or something if they were to play the Hawks. I think that's disrespectful. But I think with the Bucks getting back to them beating the Brooklyn Nets, this was a must win. And quite honestly, I think they kind of got lucky. Let's just keep it real.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be frank. Kyrie Irving's hurt. James Harden's not himself. I hold nothing against James Harden. You know, I like to bash James Harden. James Harden gets a pass. He's hurt. He's just not himself. And Durant did everything he could. He missed a shot at the end. What are you going to do? He had a miracle shot at the end of regulation. And we all know what happens in this series if they're healthy. The Nets win. Let's just keep it that simple. Mm-hmm. So to me, with the Bucks, they don't really impress me. I think for a championship team, I expect better. And what's impressive for me with the Bucks is that they won on the road. That's impressive. That's a stressful environment. The Barclays Center is bumping. I mean, certainly, all the celebrities and the expectations of Brooklyn. I think for the Bucks to go in there in that environment, especially in overtime, that's impressive with Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. But as a title contender team, I'm not impressed. Now, I kind of temper that. I'll be honest, the teams that are left, I'm not impressed with them either. So who knows? It's a crapshoot. So it's kind of like, even though they're not lighting my world on fire, can I honestly say that they have no shot of winning the NBA Finals? No, I think that's just kind of ridiculous. At the same time, they didn't really truly impress me in Game 7, other than them winning on the road. What were your thoughts on this series, Matt? You saw, again, the second half. What stood out to you?
Yeah, both teams were exhausted for one thing. I mean, you saw several times that breaks in the action, fouls, timeouts, things like that. I mean, KD just hunched over, obviously carrying the majority of the load for the Nets. But you also saw the same level of fatigue with Giannis, who's much younger than KD. So this was new territory for him too, and I think a new level of playoff intensity. I thought this is a game that KD gets all the props in the world for how he performed. Plain and simple, he just lost his legs in overtime. He just did not. He was missing mid-range jumpers before he missed that last shot at the end of overtime. So you could tell the fatigue was really setting in on him, and the Bucks just kind of survived in spite of the Nets basically just running ISO plays for KD at the end of the game there. That then, KD, as we said, his legs were out from under him, and he couldn't really complete on those finishes there. So I think it was a great Game 7 in that it was very dramatic. It was also very sloppy, but some of that was because of the pressure being so intensified. I think we saw like Drew Holiday very, very bad through 3 quarters and then kind of came alive in the 4th quarter and really helped out towards the end of that game and kind of made his whole acquisition worthwhile. You saw kind of the value that he had there coming up with a clutch 3-pointer towards the end of regulation to keep them there. So I think you're spot on about Coach Bud still potentially being in trouble with all of this. It's kind of like this Bucks team with the individual accolades. We've seen Giannis win Defensive Player of the Year. We've seen him win multiple MVPs now. This is kind of the last thing that he needs. And this was a resume builder for Giannis, specifically winning this game in Barclays Center. Even though it's round 2, I still think it's relevant and significant because it was the Brooklyn Nets and this team that was favored to win the title, even as diminished as they were, as you mentioned there. So I think this moment is huge for Giannis, even though it's not as impressive as you mentioned from our standpoint, like just kind of hanging on and surviving. It's still kind of getting over a roadblock in a way